time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Welcome to a special edition of Mike G and the Garbage Gang for our election recap. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G, and you're participating in Mike G and the Garbage Gang. So let's be heard. We've got a special co-host for today's live stream. We've got Jonny Chaffin, the very original liberal for Trump. Jonny, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
So tell us a little bit. You're out there in LA. What are the meltdowns like so far? Have you encountered any crazy meltdowns since the election results?
A lot of, well, first of all, I personally feel like most people probably do, just like a complete release and calmness from the result. It's unbelievable. But seeing people around here is like, I don't know, I wore my Trump stuff today, for example, and I just see a lot of women like double taking at my shirt and just kind of despondent. I've spoken to a couple of people who are like, it's like someone in their family died. And simultaneously for me, it's like the 4th of July, Christmas, and like the Berlin Wall came down at the same time, and maybe like Rocky IV.
You were very adamant that had Trump not won, this would be the end of Western civilization. You said that on multiple occasions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still like everybody is just processing how big this is. Like what would have happened if he lost?
It's almost like somebody's in a near-death experience, right?
Yeah. And well, I just think about it. I used to think like even texting with people and talking that there could be some consequence for it down the road. Like whatever my text history was or my social media, there could be some consequence for it. And now I just feel totally calm. I feel, as a snowflake would say, I feel safe expressing my views.
Now, we did meet at the one and only Gold's Venice, and I know there are some Trump supporters there, one being the one and only RFK Jr., who was there on multiple occasions while we were there. Have you seen him since this all happened?
I haven't. The last time I saw him, he was working in on the bench with me while I was wearing my Liberals for Trump shirt. He took a selfie with me.
Oh, that's great. How did that start out?
I was actually talking to a friend. I didn't even see him in there, but I was wearing my shirt, my Liberals for Trump shirt. And this guy interrupted us. We were on the bench. We're like working in with each other. And he just goes, "Can I just jump in there for a second?" And it's Bobby Kennedy. And he just jumps on the bench. And he did the amount that I bench. He did like this for his triceps, wearing
a real close grip,
like bang out 10 reps, dressed like a Grateful Dead dad in his like dungarees and t-shirt tucked in. And then he was super gracious. Like I asked him, this was close to when he announced for Trump. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind. He was like, absolutely, took the picture with me. Awesome dude.
That's great. I saw Michael Hearn posted a video with him and RFK Jr. and was hoping that he'd get sort of like a hero's welcome over at Gold's, but maybe not so much. Did you wear your shirt to Gold's today?
I did. Yeah. I mean, there's a handful of people that sort of come up to me and are kind of low-key Trump people. And then there are a lot of scowling, kind of miserable people that I'm sure don't appreciate it and are sad, but I don't give a shit.
Okay. This has got to go on the air, so we got to watch the excerpt. I feel like Howard Stern with Beetlejuice on back in the day. Yeah. No, Beetle, don't say the F word. So you think there is about a 50-50 mix at Gold's? Because I always thought that if you're somebody, there was some article that came out within the last year or two that said that working out can make you more conservative, or like some kind of, I forget exactly what it was, but it was said in with a negative sort of connotation. And I found that to be true for the most part, because you're talking about accountability and personal responsibility and work ethic and discipline, and that tends to lead to more conservative positions and values, don't you think?
Yeah, well, and also just flat out like testosterone levels. I
Sure.
think there's like a direct correlation to testosterone levels in your political views or your political, wherever you fall in the spectrum.
But you
Uh,
think it's about 50-50 at Golds?
I think because it's LA and it's Gold's Gym, and probably most people are so out of it, that there's a huge segment that have no idea what's going on in the world outside of Los Angeles, and their kind of piece of the entertainment business or whatever they do. But among people who are kind of plugged in, I would say it's probably like 85-15 Democrat to Republican, like Trump people in the minority.
Really?
Yeah.
In the gym itself?
Yeah.
No way.
Um,
Wow. I've been wearing my Never Surrender tees to my gym in Pennsylvania. I think it's a little bit different over here.
I bet. It is interesting. One thing I noticed today, it's like different. I've been wearing my stuff for like a year, around the west side of LA, and it wasn't maybe not taken seriously by everybody. It's just like, oh, it's a wacky Trump thing, and now it's actually like a bit threatening because
Things
people
got
are
real.
upset and they were kind of smug and didn't think this would happen. So now I can feel that it's like makes a far bigger impression negatively.
All
But
I keep
again, I
thinking
feel like I feel free to express myself.
good. You ought to be. I have a feeling that you might be off on the 85-15. Maybe we should go and poll some people one day. That'll
We
be a fun video.
we could do. Um,
I did see a guy who wore some kind of a shirt or hat saying something about he got tricked into voting for Biden, or I should have voted for Trump, is what the shirt or hat said over at Gold's. I thought that was pretty funny.
yeah, I have. It is surprising. I have come into contact with like there's like a little MAGA underworld in LA that I don't know if I'm like at the edges of it or something, but I was invited to an election night party in Venice, with these amazing people. There were 6 or 7 people there that were all like low-key Trump people. I've been invited to a celebration, at somebody else's house next weekend.
Oh, that's great.
So it's, they're little pockets of Trump people.
I'm pretty excited about the next 4 years. I keep thinking about their mantra seemed to be "We're not going back," and it was so annoying. But you remember they kept saying that in all the campaign trails and everything like that. They were saying "We're not going back," referring to
We're
Trump.
gonna turn the page.
Hey, we're going to turn the
Turn the
page.
page.
Yeah, we're not going back.
Like,
And my response to that today is, "Get in, boys, we're going back." Just pull up with the truck, everybody load in, because we are going back, and it's going to
Yeah.
be glorious. But he's got a great opportunity. He's assembled a real dream team between RFK Jr. and Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek. We could do some really amazing things in this country. What are some of the things that you're optimistic about in the next 4 years?
Well, I think we're like on the precipice of a American golden era and renaissance like we've never seen. I mean, I'm still processing like just the idea that RFK Jr. could have control of the FDA and clean up big pharma. That's just like a tiny one little sidebar. But you can look at some of the foreign policy stuff that's like already happened before he's even taken office. There's like a willingness to negotiate a peace with Russia and Ukraine. One thing I'm salivating over is accountability for all of these government people that have broken the law that need to be prosecuted, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think
Lots of unelected bureaucrats too, right? With no accountability.
Well, there has to be truth and reconciliation in some way to move forward so that we can unify, like everyone keeps throwing around unity, but we have to agree on things and move forward. But all of these people who broke the law, and Trump said today, like anyone involved in censorship of Americans' free speech, they are going after. I know liberals will freak out and think that this is some sort of like fascist attack or something. It's the absolute opposite.
Right.
It's literally holding people accountable for breaking the law who violated Americans' First Amendment rights. It's like the most just thing a politician could do.
Right. You got to
Um,
protect people's constitutional rights and liberties. And that's where they get it twisted. Because somebody was asking me, can Trump do something or his administration do something about the way the media has unfairly covered people on the right for the last several years? And my first thought was, if he tries to hold anybody accountable in that regard, they're going to say that he's trying to suppress those journalists and things of that nature by doing something to make the coverage fair, right?
yeah, they're going after Robert De Niro and Rachel Maddow. They're going to
Yeah.
put them in camps or something. But I was reading today that they could, like, the way that the White House press conferences are arranged is interesting, and that's something that they could blow up rather than giving preferential access to legacy media organizations that they don't have to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and who's going to be like, who is going to fill all of these cabinet positions. This is like a dream, just like
Right.
chatting with people over who's going to be press secretary. Is it going to be like Tucker? Could it be Nicole Shanahan? Like, there's so many amazing things. It's awesome.
I just hope it's mostly trustworthy outsiders. I think one of the things that disappointed me the first time around is there were a lot of swamp creatures that infiltrated the Trump administration. And he admitted that he was new to Washington and he didn't quite know many people over there. And he sort of filled in these positions with some people who had been there. And anybody who's got that stench of the swamp in Washington, we don't want them anywhere near us. So we're going to bring in our next of the boys. Getting boys, we're going back. How about that garbage comment by Joe Biden? We're all proud garbage on this program. And we've got plenty of our loyal listeners joining us in on the comments. We've got DG. Hey now, DG. Raise your hand if you're garbage in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you are one of the garbage gang. We got Rita. Hey now, Rita. We got Durso. Hey now. And Len. Len, thanks for joining us. Hey now. Coming in next is Brother Nathan. You may have seen him on our episode. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter and voted for Trump in 2020. Brother Nathan, how you doing?
I'm wonderful, guys. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. You're also in Los Angeles, California. And for the listeners, you may have seen him on our previous episode filmed in California. I met Nathan because he commented on one of our Liberals for Trump videos with Jonathan Chaffin. So now the two of you get to meet. So thank you, Johnny, because I've got a great friend and Brother Nathan now. And Nathan, what do you think about the results of the election?
I was listening to Johnny and I felt that sense of relief. This was a huge exercise in faith for me, in trusting my gut and my internal compass. But now in the last week, I think it's kind of hit me about how programmed a lot of people still are. And kind of what Johnny was talking about, that, people still dealing with that like remorse and mourning. And I was hoping that, some of the vitriol will go away. And that doesn't seem to be happening. It seems like it's still, there's still a lot of projection. It's like, there's some people, and I've seen on CNN saying, hey, well, we gotta be self-reflective. We cannot just look at the results and say that's all it's all somebody else's fault. We have to be self-reflective. And that's what I really agree with what Johnny was saying about, truth and reconciliation. I was talking to a close friend of mine that actually was very much affected by the mandates here in California, moved out of the state, and, was upset by a kind of F your feelings type of sentiment from a Trump flag. And, I was trying to do my best to talk about, this is a response. This is not, I don't feel like, conservative people instigated this energy. And I feel like it's a false equivalency to say, well, everybody's been doing the same thing, and my position is the same as Johnny's. Like, I don't feel like we can truly move forward in unity without actually reconciling the truth and holding people accountable for, pretty egregious, violations of the law. you know, and again, it's not fascist whatsoever. What's been happening is definitively fascism, you know, working with big corporations as a way to circumvent the Constitution is again definitively fascist. And so whether it's censorship or, you know, getting into lawfare, there's a lot of stuff that we got to really dissect and unpack before, as I feel like as a country, we can really honestly and truthfully move forward in harmony. It's just kind of, it's gaslighting those of us that, you know, have been on the receiving side of the censorship, the receiving side of the mandates. And, you know, Mike, we've talked about Christianity, and I believe in forgiveness, but Jesus also said he was here to bring the sword, and we're separating. And I think that there's a clear line. And again, I just don't think that it's fair or reasonable to kind of move forward just sweeping everything underneath the rug like nothing has actually happened or transpired in the last, you know, really it's been 8 years now.
Yeah, I'm concerned that as optimistic as I am about the next few years, I'm concerned that the less absolute hatred for Trump and his supporters will fuel them to do anything they can to stop him from succeeding, even if it inhibits the success of the country. I think on one hand, we're slightly better off with the fact that the election results were overwhelming, and you've got the popular vote, so you're not going to hear them complaining about we need to get rid of the electoral college, which is nonsense anyhow. But I'm still concerned that it's going to be more of the same from his first administration, where they really didn't give him a chance, and all the accomplishments that him and his administration had during those first 4 years were despite all the things that they did to him. I mean, you're talking about lawfare. It drives me nuts when you hear people on the left talk about if he gets in, he's going to prosecute his political opponents. Like, hold on a second. Am I missing something? Right. Are we serious right now? But maybe things will change. Johnny, what do you think about that?
I don't know that there's, at least in the short term, much hope. I think people are like on the left are despondent right now, and then there's a massive learning curve to sort of like, I've so many times gotten into discussions about Trump's New York case with the 34 felonies, and just to unpack that to somebody as, you know, one of the many lawfare cases that are illegitimate. It just takes so much, and someone has to be so open-minded and objective, and to be able to handle their emotions and how they feel about who they perceive Trump to be in order to process that information. I just think it's like such a small number of people that are capable of doing that. But I think the more time goes on with Trump's new administration, with people like Elon and Vivek and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, and this kind of unity group, the proof will just be in the pudding. Like, there's going to be more freedom. Like, gas prices are going to go down. Inflation is going to go down. You're going to be able to, the abortion has gone down to the states. Like, if that, you know, no one is touching any of these things. So I think I've been saying to people, like, I can't wait for 2 years from now, when you look back and realize how crazy you were.
I think that there's always going to be that 30% core that's that has to identify that way, you know. But I think we've seen this huge kind of upending in the entire political arena in terms of how people relate to these parties, you know. And that's, again, kind of going back to Mike, our initial connection with the Bernie thing, you know. Like, that's why I was always optimistic about Bernie, because I felt like he was a person on the left that was speaking to rural people, you know, and I thought that's why he had a shot. You know, so this new wave of, you know, the working class being a part of the Republican Party, I think is literally going to be, you know, one of these historic moments in our country that will go down as one of the biggest shifts that we've ever seen. And
it is a completely different Republican Party, isn't it? It's completely 100%. Different.
And I even heard somebody on NPR yesterday kind of conceding that fact, you know, that this is not the Republican Party of the past. It's not Mitt Romney's party. It's not George Bush's party. It's not Dick Cheney's party. And it's never going back there, ever.
Well, Dick Cheney's a great example because they bring him up on the stage for the Harris campaign, and they're all cheering for him, and everybody on our side is like, good, you can have him. We don't want him.
Yeah. I'll trade you Tulsi for Dick Cheney any day of the week.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what a trade.
Yeah.
Nathan, what do you think these next 4 years look like for us?
I'm very optimistic. I think the fact that, we have the House and we have the Senate, we have the courts, I think it's going to be a huge shift. And that's where my faith is coming in. I've seen God working through all of us in this moment. I went to the Coachella event. It was just so beautiful to see.
You did?
It was really, yeah, it was.
Oh, hold on. Tell us about that. Tell us about the Coachella event.
We didn't even get in. That's how rad it was.
Wow.
We got there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We left LA about 10. Took us about 3 hours to get out there. And it was just packed, but it was like, I was never happier in my life to be turned away from an event, ever. Because it just showed that that's how strong we were out here. And when people were saying, why is Trump even coming to California? I was like, because this is why. Because, like, we need to see each other. We need to see that, no, there's literally 70,000 of us that are willing to come out and stand in the heat, throughout the day just to get on some buses to go hear this guy speak for 2 hours. It was so moving and inspiring, and
I'm 3,000 miles away and obviously not there, but the mainstream media told all of us that the crowd really wasn't that big. They were exaggerating. There really weren't that many people there. What do you say to that?
That's fake news.
he got 40% of California.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I feel like we've done there's one aspect to all of this where I keep texting people like we did it. And I feel like everyone feels like they played a part in this in some way, like anonymous people on Twitter. It's a real, I'm a person who doesn't like social movements or political movements, but it's like a political movement for people who don't like them, who want to be left alone kind of. But it's very moving to feel like even people from all walks of life, it sounds super corny, but it's true. There's something like patriotic about it and just wanting to be left alone.
Well, and to be honest, I'm going to use some kind of woke language here. I did feel like growing up in rural Pennsylvania, there was a certain element of white privilege that allowed people to become apathetic. Sure. When I grew up, there wasn't a lot of people that were very engaged in civics. Unless you were really into politics, you kind of wanted to do that. You wanted to be class president type of vibe. Everybody was able to kind of not pay that much attention to it. It was that we're going to pay attention to the president every 4 years type of vibe, And I think that's been the genius of President Trump, is that he's not only kind of put people on a pedestal that need to be called out for nefarious things, but he's also just helped people engage in the political process at the local and national level like we've never seen before, at least in my lifetime, and probably in the last 70, 80 years.
Well, they really
people who vote for him and they just don't vote normally. They don't typically vote, and they've only gotten involved because of him.
And people feel, I think people feel personally affronted. If the Democrats had just minded their own business mostly and not ruined everything so moronically, they probably could have gotten away with this for a lot longer. But the radical stupidity of the whole thing is it's incredible. It's lighting the country on fire. And then it's people vote on economics, on grocery prices and gas. If you want to galvanize people, it's those things that will get people out to vote. They're so stupid for doing that.
And that's where it's not even recognizing, there's a lot of college educated people not even recognizing the hierarchy of needs. If people can't feed themselves, if they can't travel, if they can't, put clothes on their back, they're not worried about higher level conscious items, mm-hmm. and a lot of the social movements are that higher level. They're we're in the bonus round. Now we really got to be conscientious and take care of each other. But that's that's the elephant in the room, is that like for most Americans, like we're not in that cup flowing over stage, you know, and that's when you're like, wait a minute, 35% of my income goes to a government that's sending my money to the Ukraine. I don't care about that war, you know, and it's kind of sucks to say that, but like, again, when you can't handle your base necessities, those other things, you can't affect change in that arena. You know, you need to take care of your household first, and that abundance from your household has to spread out. You know, that's the way I was raised, and you know, that's, I think, what we're seeing here.
Well, it's almost like when you're on an airplane and they say if something happens and the masks come down, put your own mask on first before you start assisting others. Because if you're helping somebody else and you pass out, then both of you are done. So.
Right. And that's what was funny. I was listening to NPR a little bit last night, and they were getting into, you know, what if we pull out of NATO? What's going to happen to like the European economy? And it's like, they're going to have to figure it out. Like why do we have to be like, you want to talk about white supremacy? Like, NATO is set up so that Europe is protected by American guns and tax money. Yeah. Right.
Not everything is our problem.
Their society at this point was like can't even exist without us. But like the Democrats and the Uniparty want to present this idea that somehow it's like, you know, everyone in America's responsibility to take care of Europe. Like 1776, we stopped that game. You know, and we helped NATO and we helped after World War II, but it was a, you know, not supposed to be a forever contract. And that's, even Joe Biden said that, like, you know, we need to withdraw from NATO. We can't keep encroaching on Russia. And this is the result.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for popping in with us this evening. It's really good to see you. We should do this more often. We got a good garbage gang going here. Are you a proud member of the garbage gang, Nathan?
Proud member.
Well, you get home safe. It was great to see you.
Yeah. Johnny, we got to link up here in LA.
For sure. Good to see you.
That's right. I'll get you two together. I'll hook you guys up. Take care. We got a couple more shout outs to give. Liberty says we have some silent garbage gang loyal listeners, Lisa and Craig, who want a shout out. Hey now to Lisa and Craig. Our next guest is also known as the token bad hombre.
That's right.
We've got Lorenzo with us.
Hey, Mike. How you doing, man?
Lorenzo, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. It's good to see you.
So I got to tell everybody the story about you, Lorenzo. Lorenzo and I attended law school together. We were basically attached at the hip for 3 years. Our desks were next to one another in the library, which we spent hours upon hours over there, and found out very quickly that we were both conservative. So we had a lot to talk about. And I'll tell you this, there was one instance where you had some liberal white girl on the college campus who approached him and asked him to sign some kind of petition sort of supporting illegal immigration. And you should have seen the way Lorenzo chewed this girl out. Lorenzo, you have so many people on the news since the election saying, how could these Latinos possibly vote for Trump if he's against illegal immigration? What do you got to say about that?
Well, I mean, the first things you guys already kind of talked about it is the economy, right? Like that affects everybody, no matter what. Second of all, even illegal immigrants that have been in this country are against what's happening right now. I mean, when I have a client tell me that he wishes he was a U.S. citizen so he could vote for Trump because of what's going on right now in the border, at the risk of his own deportation, the situation is bad, right?
What kind of issues? What kind of issues are they against? What kind of issues are important to the Latino voters?
I mean, the economy is the biggest thing, right? A lot of Latinos work in construction in the oil fields in far west Texas. They're documented. When you have presidential candidates saying, like, I'm not going to let you guys drill anymore. We're going to move away from oil and gas. Guess what? These people, they don't want to be unemployed. They want to be contributing to American society. They want to work, right? And look, oil and gas is one of the few areas where blue-collar workers can actually make it a good living, okay? We're talking about six-figure jobs, no college debt. You're not going to get that in many other places. So basically, when you make that shift, what you're saying is, we would rather you guys be unemployed over global warming or whatever. Well, I still got a family to feed. I don't want to have to go and ask for food stamps or whatever. We are a proud people, so we would rather be able to provide for our families than have to go ask for a handout, which is it's different than the current wave of immigrants that we're getting, right? I mean, they're getting debit cards with thousands of dollars. They're not actually coming out here and like, oh, we want to contribute to the American economy. No, I mean, it's some here in Colorado, it used to be that illegal immigrants would like hide under, right? Be afraid of law enforcement. And recently a state trooper got shot. He pulled over someone else. This guy just driving by and shoots a cop. I mean, the entitlement, the lack of respect for our institutions, it's simply a different kind of wave that we're getting. And we know this because, I mean, Venezuela has been emptying out their prisons. You're not getting the farmer or rancher from Mexico that's trying to better their life. You're getting someone's an actual criminal. So people in the border see this, especially down in Texas. I mean, they see it every day. That is life. It's the state that's probably been the most impacted. Maybe California comes in at the second place, right? It's why Abbott had to get rid of them.
So you're saying it's a bad thing when you have millions of people come across the border unvetted? You think that might be a problem?
It may be a small problem, you know?
How do you guys think, I've been thinking about this since he won. How is he going to tackle deportation and in practice? How is this going to go?
Well, I think since many of these people that have been coming over recently have been applying for asylum, in theory, we should have all their information, and those should be the first people to go. Because in reality, that what they're doing is committing fraud. They know they're not actually political refugees, right? They're coming here for maybe economic opportunities. You could say that, right? But at that moment, they have already lied to immigration. Let's get their information and just get rid of them.
So is this a topic that you're familiar with, Lorenzo?
I have a little bit of experience in immigration law, so I know that for someone to actually qualify for political asylum is very difficult, right? You have to actually be able to prove that you're being persecuted in your own country based on, it could be your religion, it could be your race, even your like gender identity, right? These people do not fall under that category. It's as simple as that. So if we have the information, we start with the ones that just arrived, shut down the border, and just start mass deportations. Back to Venezuela you go, or China, or Haiti.
But Lorenzo, I heard on the news that it was only a few Venezuelan gangs that took over apartment complexes.
That's right.
That many.
Something like 5 of them, right?
As long as it's not yours.
It's just a few.
And then
you're in Colorado. That's not near you, though, right?
Aurora, it's right next to us.
Oh,
right
really?
Mm-hmm.
So is that a real thing? Because at first they were saying it wasn't true at all, and then they were like, "Well, it's true, but it's not that many." So what's going on over?
I mean, if you
talk to guy outside your door right now
that live around the area, they say it is a real thing. But if you talk to other people, they say it's not. So it's one point where you're like, well, the news have lied to us before. I mean, COVID's a good example how they're willing to lie to promote their agenda, right? How many people did not get vaccinated because they were told that, hey, you get this vaccine, your grandpa won't get sick, for example, right? And it turns out, oh no, that's a lie. We knew that you were still gonna be able to pass that along, but we told you that you wouldn't. So I mean, the media just has a record of lying to us.
That's another, guys. I think that's another, like, the pandemic. We have to have a reckoning with that.
Yeah,
like that's the biggest truth and reconciliation item, I think.
And on the bureaucrats that lied to us, right? Like,
did you see RFK Jr.'s tweet? I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was like, has anyone seen Anthony Fauci? I'm looking for him. Like, some of these people are going to have to be prosecuted.
Yeah. I mean, they have to be accountable for what they did. And hopefully RFK can, really make some good reforms. For example, like the fluoride in the water. I didn't even know it was a neurotoxin, but apparently it really is. So hopefully,
people think from people on the left and liberals they think RFK is like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I was pretty skeptical until recently. I started going down the rabbit hole. Trump started.
Well, here's the thing: the Democrats want the fluoride in the water because it supposedly decreases your IQ.
Yeah.
And, if they decrease everybody's IQ, the Democrats are going to win in a landslide. I said this I said that this election was nothing more than an intelligence test. That's what I said. Fortunately, as Americans, we pass by the skin of our teeth. Lorenzo, what do you have to say about all the people who say that you're a racist, you're prejudiced, you vote for Donald Trump? What do you have to say about that? Are you the most prejudiced?
They got to come up with some new arguments about that. Look, you put the worst candidate you possibly could pick. She's not charismatic at all. She ran a terrible campaign. She refused to go on Joe Rogan, even though he said, I just want to have a conversation with you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, but somehow it's on me. Look, at the end of the day, I got to buy groceries. My life under Biden did not get better. My paycheck not go farther. So I want to vote with my pocket. If it's affecting my wallet, if my life hasn't gotten better after 4 years in office and everybody's telling me that it's the greatest economy ever, I mean, I'm voting with my pocket.
Does it make any sense, though, that they say that the reason Trump won is because of racism, and yet the numbers for African-American males is highest as it's been in decades, and his support from Latinos was the highest that it's ever been, I think.
Well, I think you're trying to say that, like, Latino men, especially, like, we're sexist. Of course.
That's what it is.
A woman's job is in the kitchen, right? Which
they initially wrote in racist, and then they had to cross that out and write sexist because the numbers didn't match up.
Or we're sexist and racist, depending on who you ask, right? Because
the sexist thing doesn't make sense either, because you have Senate candidates where the woman won, right?
Yeah.
I think even Michigan went cross ticket where they voted Trump for president and the female Democrat for the Senate. If I'm not mistaken.
I mean, Kamala was just a terrible candidate. Yeah. She underperformed everywhere.
Don't tell them.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that a minority can do in this country is not do what Democrats want them to do.
Oh man,
right. It's like you're supposed to behave and just let them decide for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't go with it, then you're ignorant and have been somehow misled and are not entitled to your own views as an individual.
Or you're voting against your own interests.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that in the last few days. It's absolutely disgusting and absurd.
No, I say keep it coming, Johnny. I say keep it coming, because if they think by chastising the Latino males and the African American males, they're going to get their vote back. They're going to say, "Oh, we're sorry, we'll vote for you next time."
Yeah,
don't they know what's good for them? Yeah, I mean, it's a black community.
Let them not realize all the things. They just don't get it. I don't know that they ever will on the left. They just don't understand. But if they continue to blame this loss on racism and misogyny, they're never going to make any fixes that help them win an election ever again, which is just fine by me.
I mean, that will take some self-reflection on their part, right? And they don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that. They don't want to make any
that we just made bad
They don't want to realize that they've gone off the deep end and that they're all extremists now. Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have anything else you want to add? You've been phenomenal. You're a great guest.
We're looking forward to this 4 years, man.
Yeah, well, you better come back and join us. Are you a member of the Garbage Gang now?
Oh, hell yeah. Anytime.
All right. Garbage 2024, baby.
Right. Gentlemen, take care.
All right. We got a few more people piping in. Thank you, everybody who's joined us so far. We've got Dr. Val Finnell, Colonel Dr. Val Finnell. Thank you so much for joining us. Gun Owners America State Director in Pennsylvania.
Hey,
Dr. Val,
thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Long time no see, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I went out to the dumpster to take some trash out just so I can kind of get in the right mood to be in the garbage gang.
There you go.
Just right before I got on the show.
Oh, I thought that was your cologne. It's good to hear, though. So as the state director for Gun Owners of America, just so you know, how I met Johnny was I was in Gold's Venice in California, minding my own business, lifting weights, and I see a gentleman who's wearing a Come and Take It shirt. I noticed it, and I thought that was pretty cool, but I didn't approach him and say anything. Everybody's kind of in their own world lifting weights. And then I noticed somebody giving Johnny a hard time because of his shirt. And that's when I said, oh, no, I'm not dealing with that. And walked on over and had Johnny's back, and we've been friends ever since. So Johnny's a supporter of the Second Amendment as well. And Dr. Val, didn't you spend a lot of time in California?
I lived there for 3 years, from 2009 to 2012. I was chief of the medical staff at Los Angeles Air Force Base. So I lived in Redondo Beach and worked in El Segundo.
Nice.
Yep.
Now you escaped and you live in Pennsylvania. Eventually, we'll
back
get Johnny
home.
out here.
From Pittsburgh originally.
So, Dr. Val, what do you make of the election results and how that impacts our rights? How does Gun Owners of America feel about the election results?
Well, we're ecstatic, and our members and supporters in Pennsylvania have been very responsive, and our team here, our leadership team in Pennsylvania, orchestrated a massive text message campaign along with Hunter Nation. Hunter Nation pulled together all this data regarding hunters who are not who have not showed up to vote often enough in the last 2 or 3 cycles, and they identified who those voters were, and they said, hey, we're going to reach out to them, and we partnered with them and spent some money, and we ended up sending about 675,000 text messages in here to Pennsylvania and also to Arizona and to Wisconsin. And we had a phenomenal response. We got a lot of responses back. Yeah, I'm voting for. We asked them specifically, who are you voting for? Do you need trouble? Do you need any help registering to vote? And if they did, there was a link that Hunter Nation provided for them to go to a great website they have to register to vote. And then we asked them, hey, would you like a complimentary membership to Hunter Nation and Gun Owners of America? And lots of them responded yes. Thousands of people have responded to these text messages. So, we were, my wife Suk is she does the Empowered 2A coordinator work here in Pennsylvania for GOA. That's our women's outreach program, and she has a ton of contacts with previous campaigns she worked on. And so part of that is Hunter Nation, and she helped us get this put together. And this is really a landmark for us, that we were able to reach so many people in swing states who had lower propensity scores to vote, and we reached out to them. We got such a great response, and I just know from the response that we received that we really helped get hunters and gun owners to the polls in 2024, and that helped flip this race.
Why is it that gun owners in general have a low propensity to vote? I think Pressler put out some stats about that. I know a few years ago I had looked into it for New Jersey specifically, and there were more gun owners than there were votes for Murphy. And it's like, if everybody would just get out there and vote, this guy wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I think Vote for America did the stats, and it was like, as far as hunters and sportsmen were concerned, it was around 10 million nationally. And in Pennsylvania, that came in around 500,000 or so. I don't know what the reason is behind it, but I can tell you from my experience, and this is just my anecdotally, when I work on shows and I do tabling at not so much events, but gun shows, when people walk by the table, there's a lot of apathy, and there's a lot of attitude that, well, we have the Second Amendment, we don't have to worry about things. And I'm like, well, if you like the Second Amendment, then you really need to protect and defend it, because there's a concerted effort on the other side to undermine those rights nonstop. Okay. And the only reason why we've been able to preserve those rights and to advance them in some cases is by the action of gun owners getting involved and contacting their elected officials. So I am hoping through this victory, Trump's victory, and also the down ballot races that we won, that this apathy is something of the past, that they realize finally now it's time to wake up. I just hope they just don't fall back asleep again.
Dr. Val, what do you think would have happened if Kamala Harris won this election? What would have happened to gun rights?
Well, she's already stated publicly she wasn't going to wait for Congress. She was just going to write more executive orders. That was one thing. God only knows what they would have been. She would have followed in the footsteps of Biden and continually just trying to usurp the Constitution. There's this, I think Article 1 of the Constitution mentions something about all legislative powers and invested in the Congress or something like that. I mean, that is just so arcane, right? It's like, why should we have a Constitution if we're not going to follow it? my camera has its own ideas.
That's
Article 1, just bypass that, just write executive orders and be done with it. So that's what we'd be seeing. We'd be seeing weaponizing the Justice Department against FFLs, weaponizing the ATF against FFLs. We saw this in Pennsylvania when Josh Shapiro was Attorney General, weaponizing the law enforcement apparatus against lawful businesses such as gun show promoters for selling do-it-yourself kits and P80 kits, all those kind of things we saw. And I'm so glad that we were able to elect Dave Sunday to Attorney General in Pennsylvania. GOA backed him since the primary. And now for the first time in 6+ years or more, we're now going to have an Attorney General who's not going to be hostile to our rights all the time, right? Hopefully never, and will help advance them. One of the things we want to get back on is reciprocity with Virginia. That was just unilaterally pulled. We're going to try to get that back, and maybe rolling back some of Shapiro's anti-gun opinions, like on making pieces of metal and plastic firearm precursors, to be guns. That was challenged in court. So hopefully, with a stroke of a pen, Dave Sunday can reverse some of these things. So we were really happy about the Trump win. We're also happy about Dave Sunday, and that was our big statewide race. And we won that in Pennsylvania, and also in Congress. I mean, look, we saved Scott Perry's seat. Janelle Stelson was on his heels trying to take that seat. Two other Republicans who flipped seats in Pennsylvania, Matt Cartwright and Susan Wild, are not going to be in Congress anymore. That's a good thing. And of all things, think about this. Senate District 5 in Philadelphia, it's a state Senate district, was won by a Republican for the first time in 20 years. And it's a D+12 district, 12% more Democrats. This Joe, his name is Joe Picazzi. He knocked on 70,000 doors in Senate District 5. He's 29 years old. 70,000 doors. And this is a message to everybody out there. If you're thinking about running for office, this is how you win. Okay. You're not going to win by sticking yard signs in your yard. Okay. You're not going to win by going on YouTube a couple of times a day. You win by walking around the neighborhoods in your district and knocking on doors all the time. That's how the left took out the pro-gun, the old blue dog Democrats in the Allegheny County, was knocking on doors. Okay. And so the techniques are the same. You got to get out and knock on the door. I don't know Joe Picozzi. We need to send him a survey. This is a district that didn't come on our radar because it's so blue in that area. But for the first time in 20 years, there's a Republican representing Senate District 5.
Dr. Val, you talked about how these people you speak with, they think that the Second Amendment sort of stands in the way of any of these problems when it comes to our gun rights. It just boggles my mind how somebody could be so naive and not be paying attention to what happens in, say, California, like where Johnny lives. Are these people hunters and they only own a shotgun to go out hunting once in a while? Or what's the deal? How does somebody end up with such a false sense of reality when it comes to our Second Amendment rights?
A lot of it is ignorance, and it's hard to educate people if they don't want to be educated, right? And Suk always says to me, he says, "You can't educate pork, you can only cure it." So it's kind of the same thing. We have a lot of that, and you see comments like this on Facebook, and I said, if you get picked up for carrying a firearm without a license to carry firearms in Pennsylvania, and you want to plead the Second Amendment before the judge and be the test case, go right ahead. Sure. But and this is how I try to educate people on this all the time. I said there's kind of this hierarchy, right? The hierarchy of priorities. And the hierarchy of priorities should be number one, elections, right? So, because if you don't have the right people in office, you're not going to be able to. The legislature's either going to assault your gun rights and take them away from you, or we won't be able to pass any pro-gun bills. The second thing is then legislation. Once you have those elected officials that are on your side, you push for pro-gun legislation and you defeat anti-gun legislation soundly. And the last thing you want to do, and I know Mike, you won't want to hear this, is litigation. Okay. Litigation. Right. I mean, it's expensive. and you're rolling the dice. You don't know what's going to happen, and you could make bad case law, unintentionally. You don't know. You just don't know. So, I mean, and that's the reason why people need to get involved. You get involved with elections, and then we work in the legislature, and hopefully we don't have to get to the point where we need to, sue people. But look, we've had some landmark cases in the last couple of years that have been great. But again, I hope this election wakes people up and they don't go back to sleep, and they say, hey, I got to get involved now and stay involved so we can keep fixing things and keep it on the right track.
Yeah, if we don't take our foot off the gas, then we'll be in pretty good shape these next few years, right?
That's exactly right.
Do you guys think Kamala actually owns a gun? And that there was that during the campaign, that was the biggest sign of desperation for me, was when Kamala was talking about shooting an intruder and how her and Doug are gun owners.
Yeah.
Just like abject desperation.
Terrible legal advice, by the way.
Do you think they're actually gun owners, or that was just like totally made up?
Well, she's a known liar, so there's that, right? And the fact that she's saying it's ridiculous that you're saying that we're going to take away people's guns when she's on tape saying she's going to do it by way of executive order immediately.
Right. Yeah, there's that. And when she was in San Francisco, she supported the handgun ban in San Francisco, and she also wrote
ridiculous laws.
Well, I heard that she concealed carried while she was operating the fry-later at McDonald's.
yes, that's the most truthful account that we've gotten so far.
She was strapped on every shift.
You remember the Heller case in D.C., that landmark decision, or the Second Amendment was finally declared an individual right? Well, she wrote an amicus brief against the Heller case. So she says, we're not taking your guns away, and I have a gun in my house. So, but meanwhile, she was writing opinions and supporting gun bans, right, for everybody else to get their guns taken away from them.
So everybody has this into perspective, the Heller case was a 5-4 decision. So we were one vote away, and all it did was that confirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to keep a firearm in your home for self-defense. That's it. Very, very limited. So you had 4 Supreme Court justices and Kamala Harris trying to get a 5th, right? Trying to sway the vote on that one. Yeah, but he had 4 Supreme Court justices who came down that there is no individual right to keep a firearm in the home for self-defense. Could you imagine what that would have meant for our gun rights in this country? Had she gotten her way with her brief, right? Had she been a successful advocate?
That's exactly right. So here she is claiming she's a gun owner, but she wants to take guns away from people. As I always say, if Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all, right? So it's a clear double standard for Kamala Harris. So it says one thing one day, one thing the other day. Same week, she's supporting assault weapons ban. Yet she says publicly that she's not going to take guns away from people. It's just insane. All you have to do is listen to what she says. But fortunately, she's not going to be our president. And I'm very confident that we're going to have a different experience with President Trump than we did the first term. He is much more inclined now to, talk to gun owners of America than he was in the first term. And he even recorded a video for us when for our first Goals conference, which happened in August. We had our first national conference called Goals, Gun Owners Advocacy Leadership Summit. So we had that in August, and we're going to do that annually. And President Trump recorded a special video for us. So I think, he's going to start listening to the people who are really representing the true interests of gun owners in America, right? Some other organizations may have given him bad advice in the past. And so President Trump has promised to roll back Biden's executive orders in that first week of office. So we are going to be watching closely, and we're going to be working closely and trying to hold him to that. But I'm confident that it's going to be a much different experience for us.
We got Chuck in the comments says, in his opinion, Kamala 100% owns a gun. She's a rules for thee, but not for me type of person. She has a gun, but no clue what it is. That's entirely possible. I know one thing. I've got photographic evidence that Trump owns a gun, though.
Nice.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
And a tank.
And he owns the tank as well. That's right. Dr. Val, anything else people need to know? I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Do you think anything else that there's people need to know who's watching? And we got to keep our foot on the gas. That's definitely very
Keep your foot on the
important
gas.
moving forward.
Absolutely. And go to gunowners.org and click the join button. Okay. We need everybody involved. I mean, don't stop. Let's keep pushing.
And these guys are the real deal. Gun Owners America, they're the real deal. They will fight for your rights. They're not going to lead us down some bad roads or anything like that. They're going to stand up. They're in it for the right reasons. Thank you so much for what you do, Dr. Val.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Are you a member of the Garbage Gang?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Good deal. We got another member of the Garbage Gang. Proud Garbage. Garbage 2024, Dr. Val.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. We've got one last guest who's going to join us. We've got the other Mike. We've got Michael Moore.
Not that Michael Moore.
Not that Michael Moore. I was going to
That's
say.
what I thought it was.
You got some excellent documentaries. Not.
Thank you very little.
Yeah, so, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. We've really run the gamut this evening so far. You joined our program a number of times. You're one of the originals on the program, really. The first couple of weeks we were on the airwaves, you were joining us as the senior historian talking about different issues. What are your thoughts on the election results? And they don't have to be anything historical, but what are you thinking?
So one thing that I ran across a few articles recently talking about exit polling and how the vote of American Catholics had shifted from the last election with President Biden, obviously beating former and future President Trump, and this time how the Catholic vote had swung back the other way. A few of the estimates I saw, it said that President Biden had won that vote by a narrow margin, but depending on which exit polls you look at, somewhere between 5 and 15% advantage for President Trump this time. So there was a huge shift there. I thought that was interesting, and I think that could certainly account for a good bit of the overall shift in the election results.
You know what's interesting, Mike? Because you live in Western Pennsylvania. I don't make it out there very often. I saw somebody posting on X that the support for Kamala in Pennsylvania was overwhelming and there was no way that Trump actually won. It's really funny how they're allowed to question the results of the election. But anybody who questioned the results 4 years ago was some kind of crazy person.
Oh, absolutely.
That was the point. What they were claiming is that there was so much overwhelming support for Harris in Pennsylvania, and it's preposterous to think that she lost. What was the split like where you live in Western Pennsylvania?
So with the exception of a few very heavily Democratic pockets, just casual observation of yard signs, things like that, the support for President Trump, I would argue, was actually the overwhelming one. Saw very few Harris Walls yard signs. And, I live in Allegheny County, which is one of the, most Democrat-leaning counties in the state. So to have seen so little support for the Harris Walls ticket and so much support for the Trump Vance ticket, I was skeptical that the Harris Walls ticket was, greatly in the lead.
Oh, so one thing, a question that came up about the Catholics that you were talking about. Did you see the Gretchen Whitmer video that was online? The Michigan governor
with doing the Eucharist.
Oh yeah.
How do you think that fares for the Democrats in the Catholic vote? Was that was
that's a tough one, because there were certainly undertones there that made it seem very similar and very disrespectful. But it's one of those things that you can always kind of explain away with, oh, well, that wasn't really what it meant. I don't know. that it was extraordinarily overt and direct enough to really alienate a lot of people. But, I think if you were so inclined, you could definitely take it that way and find it to be offensive.
Well, as a Catholic school teacher, do you think that that's what they were doing, or do you think there's not enough evidence there?
Yeah, I'd like to try to give folks the benefit of the doubt, especially when people are trying to be funny. Sometimes that stuff can be misinterpreted.
What else could it have been, though? I've never seen that ever happen other than the context of taking communion. No?
Yeah, well, there's that. So, it could have just been, we could always just chalk it up to stupidity. It's not like people think of her as, some sort of Rhodes Scholar or something.
Like DG says it was insulting.
What was the objective of that at during a political campaign in the crucial, final weeks of it?
Right.
What was the thinking behind that? It's insanity.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, why does someone do something like you just asked? And, a lot of times it's people ask me, well, why is the law, ... fill in the blank? And I said, well, guys, you're asking me to try to get in the mind of the government and figure out why the government did something.
Or the mind of the Democrat campaign, such an undisciplined, ridiculous campaign.
It's crazy.
What did you guys, there's the elephant in the room here, the 15 million missing votes from the last election.
Yeah, we're really trying to get kicked off of YouTube now. We talked to that.
Just kidding.
We shall not mention those 15 million votes ever again, or ask any questions about it. We will never talk about that ever again. Well, I do think it's funny how many people on the left are suddenly questioning the results of the election, and when they do, there are people who are on these social media platforms replying to them saying, you're almost there, you're so close. Because their question is, it's impossible that Kamala got 15 million fewer votes than Biden. They must be cheating now because there's no way that she got 15 million fewer than Biden. And everybody's saying, yeah, you're almost there, pal. You might not be ready to discover what you're about to discover, but everybody's asking questions on all sides now. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we didn't have to be concerned about getting kicked off for asking questions or joking around or any of this stuff?
It's coming. All these guys want to work with the Trump administration and have Jeff Bezos tweeted something about congratulating Trump and Zuckerberg, and I think these guys are going to change their tune. They're opportunists.
C. Berger says definitely mocking the Eucharist. So, Mike, you're getting outvoted by all the Catholics in the chat over here.
I'm not sure that. It's just one of those things that I'm not 100% sure on, and I don't want to jump the gun.
It's not beyond a reasonable doubt for you?
No, not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's close, though.
What about Kamala skipping that dinner in New York that Trump did the roast at?
What a colossal.
Do you think that cost her Catholic votes? You guys think that cost
I wouldn't
votes?
doubt that cost her votes. I just think the overall idea of her skipping something that's such a traditional thing, I think it was just a condescending move to not be there toward so many people of faith, not just Catholics.
What do you think the reason was? Oh, I can't get inside the mind of the government. Never mind, silly question.
Right.
I think she's not. Imagine having to go toe-to-toe with Trump and a roast in that format.
That would be my speculation. That would be my guess.
Incapable of being herself or authentic in any way or funny, that it would be an impossibility for her to show up at that event and do anything.
If you look at every aspect of that campaign from the beginning to the end, it was a movie production. That's what it was.
Totally.
If you looked at all of her rallies, you never saw these wide shots like you see the Trump rallies where you see the entire crowd. They had these nice and tight shots, and it felt like you were watching a movie. And I mean, you had the mainstream media, I believe CNN at one point said that she spoke to a sold out stadium for her rally. It was a high school gymnasium.
Football thing?
It was a high school gymnasium. They're calling it a sold out stadium. And so many people are none the wiser because they got these tight shots on her. With the Al Smith dinner, she didn't show up, but she did a pre-recorded thing with an actor carrying the ball for her. All right, the
like
lady from Saturday Night Live. It's just every single part of it was staged. That's why they edited the 60 minutes clips, right?
Yep.
All along the way. She couldn't participate in the Rogan program because she couldn't do the 3 hours. It wasn't gonna work.
Everybody was at the very beginning when they pumped so much money in and announced her, and it was like her with the coconut, and I think it was Time Magazine. It's like, oh my God, everybody's getting coconut pilled about Kamala. It was just like completely fake and false.
Yeah.
And ridiculous. It was just a matter of time of her being like, she wasn't even really exposed during this whole campaign. She did like the absolute minimum, and just that was enough to turn people off. If she actually did like
had she had to go longer, because she only had a few months due to what happened with Biden, do you think that had she run a longer campaign, it would have been even worse for her?
I mean, the strategy was to hide her from the very beginning, not do any press and like keep her in the basement, whatever. But the more you get to know her and you see her, she's so incompetent. I think it probably would have gotten worse. Like she's a terrible candidate. She's inauthentic. And the more you see of her, it was like there wasn't a thing she could do in the last month or so of the campaign. It's like they're just trying to create momentum. There was nothing she could have done to create any momentum or change anybody's mind, which is when they went to like Trump is Hitler again and tried to play that game. But the more she's exposed, like the worse it becomes.
She would have just had to keep hiding. And I think the longer you have, the more you hide, the public perception just gets worse. And it's one thing to hide and be slick about it for 3 months. But if you're out there for 9 months and you're constantly hiding, I think that's a worse look for you.
She did a decent, she did a decent job at the debate. That was like the only thing that she sort of did well. And she looked like she just had pre-rehearsed answers. Like she was speaking from specific memory. And then they obviously practiced these ridiculous, like her looking over at him and like this like quizzical mocking look, which was obviously part of their strategy. I don't know if you saw the video where a lighting expert showed how they lit her versus Trump.
Right.
So that you can like his eye, you couldn't see his eyes. It looks like demonic, and she looked like an angel. Sure. They did do a good job. She looked like pretty and was well put together on that night. But outside of that debate, she was like, I can't think of one moment where I was like, oh no, people could vote for her. And
if she doesn't succeed with laying out the traps for Trump during that debate, she gets smoked.
Oh, totally. I mean, yeah.
If he hadn't taken the bait, he would have smoked her. I mean, really, all he had to do was, when they're talking about the fine people on both sides, and the moderators, to some degree, saved him by attacking him, because I think a lot of people saw this and was like, this is ridiculous. This is totally unfair. They're ganging up on him. Like the one moderator saying, after Trump mentioned the Northam in Virginia comment about you deliver the baby and then you have a conversation, the doctor has a conversation with the mother, the moderator jumps in and says, no, that doesn't happen anywhere. It 100% does.
Yeah.
Well, not that 100% does, but Ralph Northam 100% said that. And all Trump had to do in that moment is say, I want everybody at home to go on your computer. I want you to watch the full clip of fine people on both sides. I want you to watch the full clip of Bloodbath. And I want you to watch the full clip of what Ralph Northam said about delivering the baby and then the doctor having a conversation with the mother. Once you watch those 3 clips, it'll take you just a few minutes. You're going to know what kind of liars these people on the left and the mainstream media are, and you're never going to trust them ever again. And I'm going to take us to a different place with this. That's all he had to say, and it's knockout. Game over.
100%. And what you just said is like, if anybody's listening who should absolutely do that, if you haven't, and this, you're like confused about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are like that. Seeing that Charlottesville press conference clip was incredibly eye-opening for me. a few years ago.
And so did you actually believe it and then watch the full clip and say, oh man, I've been lied to. What else are they lying to me about?
I did. I was like horrified. It was like, could this be real that this guy, like the president of the United States, said at a press conference that neo-Nazis were fine people? Did he do that? And then a friend of mine sent me like the full, he's like, it's not true. It's not true. And sent me urged me to watch the full clip. I watched it and was like, oh my God, this is like really awful. Whether you like Trump or not, this is like a horrible smear. And any media organization, it would be like, it's so debasing and handing over all of your legitimacy. That was like the end for me. That
Well,
and the
they
Russian
just had
collusion
another one
story,
with the
it's
Liz
like,
Cheney. They just had another one with the Liz Cheney comment. I'm sitting there.
yeah, this is like,
I'm sitting there and I hear some headline. Trump says that Liz Cheney should be shot in the face or firing squad or whatever the headline claimed. I was like, did he really do that? That's crazy. What the hell's the matter with him? And I watched the clip, and in 15 seconds, I said, that is not what he said at all. That is ridiculous that they're painting it like that.
I think we feel like, at least like I feel super calm now. I think it's because that stuff, like your nervous system during this whole thing, like the Liz Cheney comment, and then the poll from Iowa, Kamala's going to win Iowa by 3 points. Like what? And like people start texting me that was like on Sunday or something. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is fake. Like just
they were close, but not quite.
But now that this is like, yeah, it's absurd. But all of this stuff is so gaslighting and so
You're only off by
unsettling.
15 points.
But now that it's over,
It's
it's
within
just
the margin of error, bro. Plus or minus 15 points.
Now that this stuff is over, it's like my body is relaxed now. Like I don't have to engage in this stuff anymore, at least for like the next chunk of time. Like Trump, has the presidency, the House and the Senate. So we don't have to like every 48 hours have a new episode of the media like twisting something to try and bring about a response from hysterical, poorly informed people, which is like the objective these days.
I do want to bring in another guest, Jonathan, because we heard the left blame the result of this election on racism and misogyny. So I wanted to have Liberty on to talk to us a little bit about what she thinks about the results of the election. Liberty, what do you got for us?
Hello. Well, similar to Lorenzo, putting like women don't want to be put in a box like anybody else, There's a huge divide, I think, in women in this country, but we just want to be treated like everybody else, that we care about, healthcare. We care about, the border security. We care about the economy. It's more than just our reproductive rights. But the headlines put out today are: men got exactly what they wanted. Democratic women see a country that is not ready for a woman president. Women report increased misogyny online.
Hold on, you were breaking up. You were breaking up. Do it again.
Oh, so the headlines I'm seeing right now, because I was just doing some searches, men got exactly what they wanted. Democratic women see a country that is not ready for a woman president. Women report increased misogyny online post-election. Trump versus Harris, American misogyny on the ballot. So that's what, a lot of them are going with. I watched a bunch of the news shows. They're going with misogyny. We're not ready for a woman president. We didn't elect Hillary. We didn't elect Kamala, however you say it. But it's the same old story. And it's like, just leave them with that story then, because they're just not understanding it, I don't know. That's how I feel. It's all I see online on TikTok and Instagram is women freaking out about, the reproductive rights, posting really strange things. And is that all women care about? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't read with obviously more than half of the women in this country. Doesn't make sense at all that that's all we vote on. And I don't agree with it anyway, but that's how I feel.
What if Winsome Sears, let's say, out of Virginia, had run for president as a Republican and she lost, do you think that they would be blaming it on misogyny, saying, I guess, the country's just not ready for a woman president. Everybody should have gone out there and voted for Winsome Sears. Is that what they'd say?
No, we're looking at their actions. We're looking at what they do. We're not looking at what they say, just like anybody else. Just like I'm sure Lorenzo would say what Latinos are looking for. We're looking for what affects us in our daily life, and they're even saying it like, well, we want protection from men as our president. And, quite frankly, some of the women do want that. And like a strong president. But, you put Tulsi Gabbard up there and, or a woman who has fought before, I'll vote her in a second, I don't know. It's just we do need strength right now. And she just was not a strong candidate. And again, she was the border czar. That was her one job. And she did not do it. So we're looking for someone who's qualified for the job. Trump has women around him all the time doing an amazing job in his cabinet. They care about actual things that everyday people care about. And we're looking at the person just like anybody else. It's so annoying just to say that we vote on just, this gender stuff or women's reproductive rights. No, we're voting on what everybody else is voting on.
What do you think? Did you see Jill Biden at the polls voting wearing a red pantsuit?
Yes.
Do you think that was on purpose and she pulled the lever for Trump and that was the Biden family is laughing right now?
It would be great if she showed up with the red suit and the Trump hat that Biden wore at that other event, right?
People have been saying that since Biden put that MAGA hat on and he took it with him, they're saying, and plus I think he called to invite Trump early to the White House, to start I don't know. I think something's going on.
I mean, wearing a red, that is I
wore all red. I think maybe Dr. Biden is saying something there.
Yeah, the Democrat first lady.
What does that mean when he says he invites them early? Like he wants them to have a sleepover party? Like, hey, pal, come on over. We'll rent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We'll get some ice cream. Mi casa, su casa, pal.
I mean, I took it as a nice thing because it was so awkward, that transition with the Obamas and Trump, because how much they hated him. You know what I mean? I don't know. Biden, I feel is more against. I've been seeing it on the news, but everybody's saying they think he likes Kamala less than he likes Trump at this point.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they threw him out. I bet the Bidens. I mean, I've read all these gossipy things that the Bidens can't stand Kamala and the Obama people actually.
Yeah, and one of the main things about Kamala too is there's so many reports about how much her staff disliked her, and I don't know how people treat people who work for them is a really big thing for me. As a woman, I care more about them just being a woman, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's crazy. When you talk, we get Len saying that Walsh's shotgun issues were because he tried to load it with tampons. That's pretty good. When Biden made the garbage comment, obviously we're running with that right now. But that was the best thing that could have happened to the Trump campaign in that moment, because they took this comedian saying something, and of course they spun that out of control. But something that could have been a negative, even if just a slight negative, turned into a huge positive. And by going out and getting the garbage truck and everything, I mean, that was just a genius move on his part, wasn't it?
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, that and there were just so many things that just got flipped on their head. The McDonald's thing was brilliant. It's such a every American kid has an emotional connection to McDonald's, and just another relatable, amazing thing. And then even Peanut the squirrel at the end there, who for me is that's Ruby Ridge all over again. It's government overreach coming in, and murdering somebody's pet, and Fred the raccoon. and it being done by some sort of like, you know, unaware, vague bureaucrat. This is like, it was like, what could be more illustrative of the situation we find ourselves in? And that was like the bookend for me. Peanut the Squirrel was like the bookend event of the campaign, and all the memes. I don't know if you guys saw the memes of like Trump and like the special forces thing with like the squirrels. It was like the cats and dog thing, but it was just so awesome.
Yeah. And there are some people on the left who I think it's kind of sick, but they came out and said, oh no, the squirrel, they did the right thing by killing the squirrel because that guy broke the law. He wasn't supposed to have it. It was illegal. And they're just okay with government having too much power as long as the government tells them it's okay. It's like that's really what it comes down to for a lot of these people. They're totally brainwashed.
I think they're like deranged HR people with like guns behind them. Like nosy, overbearing, incompetent HR people that can actually like cause real harm. And then everyone is afraid to say anything to, like, for fear of getting fired or blacklisted or whatever. So I'm so happy that we've like wiped this out. It feels like
going in a new direction.
We're gonna turn the page.
That's right. From them. Chuck says my sister-in-law has disowned all of her family because he voted Trump. True story. You know, on top of that, I've seen these videos of these women shaving their heads in protest
of the
election and stuff. And it really it's about time that Trump derangement syndrome is officially declared a mental illness, because there's no other explanation for this behavior. It's just
that's
out
like
of
when
control.
Britney Spears shaved her head. Yeah.
Well, that was because of a legitimate mental illness, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what it reminds me of. That's very strange.
Yeah. So they're exhibiting signs of a legitimate mental illness, and there's no other explanation. These people act totally irrationally. Their hatred for Trump outweighs literally any other logical analysis.
No, I don't even think it's not even Trump at this point. It's just like some projection or perception of some male figure. It's really insane.
So you think it would have been like that with any candidate? So like if Ron DeSantis, let's say, was in, it would be the same type of attitude?
I think it would have been, I think it probably would have lessened, like turned the temperature down a little bit, but he would have just been ascribed to Trump. Like, oh, well, DeSantis he's like a Trump Republican from Florida who is pro-life and a racist and 7 other things. So I think it would like turn down the temperature on how insane the figure of Trump makes people, but I don't know that it would have changed the dynamics. And DeSantis separately was like a strange primary candidate with like it was kind of awkward during those debates. And
there's no it factor, right?
No, but then weirdly, like during this Trump campaign, he's pretty much stayed out of it, but then jumped in with like the hurricane, and he handles the media very well. He got like a new haircut, and I feel like lost a little bit of weight and looked like way more charismatic and ready for prime time, maybe after having like the weight. And I think he had a bad team that made some like bad advertising and some bad moves. They put him in those boots that everybody seized on, and he looked, I think it was too much for him, but out of the so-called spotlight, I thought he looked good at the end of like the presidential campaign. He actually looked kind of presidential.
What do you think happens 4 years from now on the Republican side? Because there are a lot of options, right?
Oh my God, there's like so many, they're like dream options. It's like, obviously JD Vance, you would think it like by succession would go to him, right? But also like Vivek, Tulsi, DeSantis. DeSantis is like, there's the kind of that division within kind of MAGA or Trump Republicans with DeSantis.
Even Kennedy possibly, right?
I think he'll be
Or do you
He
think
could
he's
be,
just
but I
going to
think
really enjoy what he does so much this administration that he wants to continue with something
I
like
think
that?
he's riding along on a specific mission that's personal to him that appeals to a faction of both parties. But I don't think he is like a draw for the MAGA win of the Republican Party in and of himself or of the Democrats.
He'd have to come out and say that he totally was wrong about his stance on guns and he changed his mind, and now
I think people would be like too suspicious anyway. But
yeah,
he,
and
he's,
the climate change alarmism, which is
yeah,
a term
yeah.
that you coined, right? So that's a problem
Well,
with him.
yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
the great thing about Trump is that you get somebody where you can majorly disagree on two of these things, but Trump sees this strength in him and says, hey, we could do something really great if we join forces, even though we don't agree on everything. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I've met so many people during this cycle, so many, like several people in LA that are health focused, mistrustful of the government a bit and big pharma, whose dream and who have been thinking about this for years about like taking down big pharma, reining it in, foundational health, getting crap out of food and poison out of food is like a dream scenario. And that's just like one little deal that Trump made to bring Bobby Kennedy in, get his support, and allow him to do this thing, which is like, it's so incredible and exciting. It's like, this is like one of the, will be the MAHA, I guess, Make America Healthy Again thing will be like one of the pillars of this thing. It's so cool. Like just having gone to Europe so many times, and like you go to Europe and everyone's slim and you lose weight because they don't have the same processed crap in their food.
The Democrats
They
are
use
thinking
butter,
about
not seed oils.
running. I heard they're thinking about running the Illinois governor on their side.
Pritzker.
Yeah.
Well, on that side, I guess Newsom is now like, my God, what a situation they're in. They've got this like American psycho ghoul who's ruined California.
Yeah, don't you guys not like him out there?
He's horrible, but
I've never met anybody when I was out there. I really didn't meet anybody who liked him.
I wish someone could explain like Democrat politics in California to me. Everyone is like, I guess there's enough prosperity to sort of go along and be insulated from the policies of people like Newsom, so that everybody else pays the price for it. But it's really weird. There's like a smugness, California progressivism, like the smugness that goes along with it. But yeah, he is so incompetent, like objectively having nothing to do with who he is, what he's done as a person. It's a complete and total failure, and just like incompetence, unparalleled incompetence on a state level. And California is like the most beautiful place in the United States, one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's like the 5th largest economy. You could do so few things to make this place better. It would take so little to do that, but it's a completely captured one-party state, like we feared would have happened if Kamala won this election. It would have been over. Like we'd be America, all of these legal immigration to swing states, changing the demographics, and we would just have Democrat rule. When you don't have consequences, like there are no consequences for politicians in California. So when you don't have consequences, this is what you get.
Well, the thing is that if you live in California right now, you still could leave. But if they would have won this election and you have all the illegals voting and elections down the line and every swing state becomes a lockup for blue, you can't leave. Where are you going to go? Are you going to go to another country?
Well,
there's no escaping it.
California voted 40% red in this election.
Do you think that there are plenty of Republicans who stay home in California because it's like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to waste my time and go out there if we're not going to win?
I don't know. I just don't know as many. I know like kind of newer age Republicans in California. I went to a Republican event in Manhattan Beach like a year ago. That guy, Kurt, do you know Kurt Schlichter? I might be, He's a lawyer also, like conservative kind of personality. He spoke, and Nathan Hochman, actually, they had him there, who's the guy who just unseated Gascon for Attorney General of California. But that event, and I think it was a lot of like kind of older, like white-haired tax voter Republicans that seemed like far less interested, like very interested in low taxes and not much else.
Really?
Yeah. And then now I feel like there's another generation of kind of MAGA Republicans that are.
When was this event that you went to?
That would have been, it was like a little over a year ago.
Okay.
He was announcing his candidacy at that time. It was like a very small event, and he was kind of an unknown.
It does sound like from Nathan, though, that Coachella event was pretty wild.
Massive. And that's people like, I mean, you go to Orange County.
Different ballgame out there, right?
Completely different. Inland, if you look at like a heat map of political leanings in California, it's literally just the coastal cities that are blue that have population, but the rest of it's red.
I think some counties actually flipped this election you're talking about and got 40%. But I wonder if there are more than this, still more meat on the bone, so to speak, that there are more of them out there who just didn't vote this election because they figured it would make no difference, that Trump had no chance anyway. So they didn't turn out. I wonder if it's closer than we think.
I think in 2 years, like after, I really believe if Trump like sticks to his word and doesn't allow this thing to be ruined, which is a threat or a possibility, then I think in 2 years you'll be able to, like, I have this idea that you'll be able to talk to people that voted for Kamala even and say, like, look, like, just look at the proof. Look at everything that
you've been lied to.
Like, yeah, you've been, what more do you need to see?
Yeah.
So hopefully people will wake up.
Well, that would be great. We'll get even more liberals for Trump, and it's definitely a different Republican Party. So, Johnny, thank you so much for doing this with me tonight, man. I had a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hopefully, we can do it again. Are you a member of the Garbage Gang?
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Garbage Gang, I want to thank everybody who's listening, watching, participating. We appreciate you. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you. Thanks for watching and being a part of the Mike G in the Morning family. You're not alone. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out one of the other videos suggested above.